Hello. Chelsea won, Arsenal won. So 22 people go for a night out. 11 on one side, 11 on the other. 21 come back, and a game of football interrupts a barroom brawl. That first half was chaotic. The second half showed some football. It's Mark, it's Sam, it's Janusz. And a 1-1 draw involving the two London rivals. Janusz, who's the happier of the two managers before we get into the glorious chaos?
Well, obviously Chelsea, the way they played, having to play for a long period of time with 10 men and not just defend what they had. They continue to look for 3 points, which is always good to see because not always is that the case. So you have to say it's Chelsea. In terms of Arsenal, maybe not at their absolute best, but as they say, if you can't win it, don't lose it. And their character was tested, certainly, but they did have an answer, that one answer, and that's all important. And games like these do happen. They got lured into a fight by Chelsea. I think to a large degree they've answered. Let's not forget, for years what we were talking about, the character of Arsenal, right? I mean, they answered that early fight. In the end, it was short, but I think in a game like this, getting a point, I don't think Arsenal is going to worry about it too much. Uh, Looks like Chelsea are going places, though.
Yeah, there's plenty positives for both sides. We'll get stuck into both of them. Sam, that was quite the first half. Zubimendi, Mosquera, Calafiori, and Nkapie all booked for Arsenal. So they were showing up as well. They weren't going to be a pushover for any Chelsea side. Cucurella booked early doors as well. And around that kind of 20, 25 minute stage, you're thinking there's no danger that 22 men, having started, are going to end up on the pitch. And we were proved right. You could see something coming, but
Yeah.
Caicedo was sent off. He should have been shown a red card for play acting to pretend he was actually hurt when making the tackle in the first place. But did referee Anthony Taylor get this wrong by showing him a yellow card, which was clearly a red card, when VAR let him have another look?
I mean, so yeah, first of all, 3 yellows in 13 minutes between two London rivals. You know for a fact that
Mm.
22 men are not going to finish on the pitch for this one. So I was already rubbing my hands together as a neutral because I was just excited about what might come through. But I don't think they got it wrong per se. I mean, I'm not in the room. I can't hear what they're saying. But my perception of what happened there was that Anthony Taylor thought that Moises Caicedo had committed a yellow card offence. So he showed him the yellow because he was like, my on-field decision is yellow. And now I'm going to go and review it and see if I was wrong. So then you upgrade it to a red card. So look, maybe we'll find out, maybe we won't. But my perception of it was that Taylor just initially thought it was a yellow, just showed him the yellow, knowing that he'd go and check it on the monitor. And from Caicedo's perspective here, look, I don't know if he reads the media and reads the press and reads the previews, but there was a lot of talk over the last couple of weeks about Caicedo versus Rice. Who's better? Who would you rather have? Who would be better in the other team's system? There's been a weird amount of talk about these two players. They were held up pre-game as the two stars of the show. And I don't know, maybe Caicedo just let it get to his head a little bit because he charged around that pitch. The 35 minutes he actually spent on the field, he pushed two people over in the back for no reason whatsoever and somehow avoided a card earlier than what he did. The one where he just threw Timber off the pitch for the throw-in, right in front of Arteta, which sent the sideline up. He was looking for this. Like, he came to fight, and unfortunately, he just crossed the line when we really didn't need to. Maybe if he'd have been booked earlier, he wouldn't have actually gone that high up and that firm into that tackle because there was enough force in this tackle to be a red card, right? I mean, I saw some debate on social, but for me, this was a red. Would you guys
Oh,
agree?
clearly, 100%.
Mm.
It's a red. And Janusz, with a challenge like that, I like the fact they showed the referee normal speed, first of all, because you can look stills and everything like that. You can make it look far worse than it was. It's just a nasty challenge by Caicedo. There's a foul, there's reckless, and there's excessive force. One gets you a free kick, one gets you a yellow card, and the other one, whether it's serious foul play or excessive force, gets you a red. There's no doubt that this had to be a red. What's he thinking?
As red as it gets. I mean, look, I mean, in real time, there's always doubt, right? But it should have taken a 1 second to know that it's a red card. It's a very silly one by Caicedo for whatever reason. Sam explained this, I'll buy that absolutely unnecessary, regardless of what the talk was, right? Because you have Merino facing the wrong way in that part of the pitch. Now, on top of that, Caicedo had a teammate right behind Merino anyway, so you don't have to win that ball. And for that reason, I mean, he's already experienced enough in my book to know. And he's put a Chelsea, because we're talking about Arsenal, he's put a Chelsea in a difficult position. Because I think if they stay 11, I think Chelsea wins that game. So that's the silliness of it all. I mean, I commend Chelsea the way they reacted and the way they play with 10 men, but at home, what Chelsea did in that midfield, they nullified all Arsenal's strengths, right?
Mm-hmm.
By playing wide. Both teams played wide, but if you look at Zubimendi and you look at Eze, I mean, they're really non-existent, and they've had sensational seasons. I mean, Eze just scored a hat-trick against Spurs, and Zubimendi has been probably making Odegaard sit on the bench for a little bit longer. Who knows where that goes? So it was silly on his part, but there's zero doubt that that's a red card.
Sam, how did Chelsea adapt following the red card to Caicedo? Because at the start of the game, normally Gusto's a right back, normally Reece James is a right back. Gusto was today, but Reece James played alongside Caicedo in midfield with Enzo a little bit further forward. What did you notice that they did following the red card to Caicedo?
Well, the first thing I would say here is that, and this is a positive, is they didn't do too much too soon, because we sat here a couple of months ago after Manchester United had played Chelsea. Rob Sanchez had got sent off in that horrific weather game. And Janusz, you were correct in your assertion at the time that Chelsea were overcoached that day. Maresca reacted too fast. He made too many subs too quickly off the back of that, and actually took off one of his quickest players when you were looking to play on the counter. So first of all, I think Maresca may have just taken a second and learned a few things and said, I'm not going to make any subs immediately. He didn't overcoach in that perspective. Then he got to half time and basically just doubled down on that direct pace on the counter-attack. So he brought on Garnacho for Estevao, someone who's obviously very, very inexperienced at this level, despite his brilliance. So Chelsea were able to maintain a counter-punch threat. I thought that was very important. They had pace wide. They brought Delap on to ruffle some feathers for the centre-backs as well. Remember, not Arsenal's regular centre-backs. A little bit uneasy between the two. So, can you take advantage of any of the indecision, any of the inconsistency? It's worth a go. Delap's got some pretty decent elbows on him too. And also, did you notice Chelsea's centre-backs like tearing forward with the ball? So like if they actually got the opportunity, they would break through. And it would only ever be 4 Chelsea players committing to attack. So someone would have to stay back in lieu of them. But the Chelsea defenders taking it upon themselves to drive into that space that Arsenal were leaving and try to create that really quick attack. I was a fan. I thought Chelsea were a genuine threat through the second half. And it's very easy to fall into a situation where you don't offer any threat there at all.
Janusz?
And there should be a lesson taken this by other coaches in terms of how Chelsea do and what they do, especially when they play against very, very good teams that play football, right? Let's not forget what they did to PSG in the Club World Cup final. Let's not forget what they did the other day to Barcelona in the way they play so physical, so quickly. The beauty of it today was the way they moved the ball. That's why midfield was non-existent on both sides for long periods of time. Because the way Chelsea moved the ball from back to front was extremely quick, right? No unnecessary touches on the ball, moving the ball through the lines, and not to let a team like Arsenal get organized, or Barcelona. Okay, I mean their defense is all over the place at times, but PSG certainly has a good one as well. So that's something that Enzo Maresca has done against a very good teams that play football, and I'd pay attention to that.
Speaking of football, there were 2 chances in the first half. Estevao, after 18 minutes, maybe snatched at it a little bit and fired over, and then Martinelli just before half-time. But that was about it as far as football was concerned. And the fact we've spent 9 minutes and 5 seconds, and that's the first time we've mentioned any of the football that took place in the first half, kind of tells you what it was about. It was attritional. It was certainly more perspiration than inspiration. So there were a couple of changes at half-time made by the respective coaches. Calafiori was one of 813 players who were booked in the first half, so he was replaced by Lewis Skelly. And also Garnacho came on for Estevao. Now, 3 minutes later, in the 48th minute, Chelsea have got a corner over on the far side. Reece James takes it. And the team that's arguably the best in the Premier League at scoring from set plays, this time is undone by an opposition set play. Sam, and it's Chalobah with a really good header. How much of that was to do with no Saliba and no Gabriel for Arsenal?
It's an amazing header. I don't think I fully appreciated how good it was when I first watched it in real time, and then watched it back a couple of times and just thought, what a beautiful delivery and what a great header from the near post. Like an absolute classic. So well done to him. And I love the celebration as well. Love the biceps on those guys. Look, when you don't have your two starting centre-backs, of course, there's talked about it. There's going to be some indecision in open play, but it's going to mess with the way that you generally defend set pieces because they're pretty entrenched strategies. Of course, it's not just the first choice centre backs, is it? It's like arguably the best header of the ball in the Premier League in Gabriel, who's not there, who might well find himself on the corner of that 6-yard box defending zonally. Might do. So yeah, Chelsea have taken advantage of that. It's a nice thing to have, and well done to them for doing so, because you still have to get the delivery right and you still have to get the finish right. But of course, that door is slightly more ajar against Arsenal if Gabriel and Saliba aren't there. And Gyökeres too. He's a big guy, right? Probably would have been in that zone.
So, as Janusz, you were saying earlier, Chelsea will probably be the happier at the end of this. However, they're a goal up. Yes, they're down to 10 men. And at this stage, they're not going to take a point because they're 1-0 up. And then they concede. Merino in this, he just does it so well. He kind of floats, plays the false nine, and scores the equalising goal. This is how it came about for Merino. It was a lovely ball. Super delivery in by Bukayo Saka and headed home by Merino. So it's time to talk Arsenal. They're the Premier League leaders. You and anybody else on ESPN FC have said they are the best team in the league. Once football broke out, they were the better team for chunks of this game. What did you think of their equalising goal?
Yeah, typical Arsenal. A lot of quality, right? I mean, if you look at on the right-hand side, no surprise, Saka delivering the ball, and usually what happens in that, if you're Chelsea defensively, some mistakes. One, that Wesley Fofana was ball watching, right? You look at Gusto, who had to deal with both Merino and Noni Madueke in that situation. But I think the delivery, the timing, the changing of point of attack, and the combination play is something that's gotten Arsenal to the position that they're in, and they are still in a wonderful position, in a game, derby and all of that. So the goal was wonderful. We just didn't see enough of that today, simply because Chelsea were good. And before, I don't know if I get to it, it's a derby. It's emotional, right? We often say, well, yeah, they were missing two center backs on that goal against. Well, Declan Rice, I think, was the guilty party. I mean, he's very good in set pieces, very good in the air, and it happened. So, if anything, I think it may be just a little bit of coincidence in that situation, because in a game like this, we forget often about the not only physical but the emotional toll that some of these games take. You look at Arsenal, Spurs, and Chelsea, and in between you have Arsenal, Bayern Munich, two undefeated team in the Champions League. Now, of course, Chelsea also had Arsenal and Barcelona. The Burnley game seems to be a little bit lesser. I'm not saying that they didn't have an emotional week, but that's what happens today. And maybe a lot of these emotions, everything coming to a head, knowing that there are another two games within the 4 or 5 days, whatever it is, coming through. So look, I found it to be, I don't want to say a great game, but very, very good one, given what these two teams had to go through during the week.
Oh, it was watchable. Look, you don't always get brilliant games of football, but if you've got enough intensity and enough talking points, then it's very watchable from the neutral. And I was just thinking back, Sam, if you'd asked Mikel Arteta prior to the London derby last Sunday, I'm going to give you 2 wins and a draw. I'm not going to tell you what they are, but 2 wins and a draw. And that will mean that you're 5 points clear of Manchester City come close of play on Sunday. That's not a bad return, is it, for the week's work?
Yeah, you take it for sure. What Janusz says there about the emotional toll as well as the physical toll of such a week of playing 3 games like that in the space of 8 days is bang on. So, you can't just go into these every single game like this assuming that you're going to win. It's a 16-game run, unbeaten going into this one, was it? I think, one in 16 they hadn't won, and it was like you can't just do this forever. You can't just churn win after win after win after win. You're going to slip at some point. I'm going to say though that I was still a little bit disappointed in Arsenal's second half showing, and the reason I'm disappointed is because there have been question marks. Probably the one question mark of Arsenal this season so far has been, okay, you're really good defensively. Okay, you're amazing at set pieces. What have you got for us in open play? What's your open play threat? And there have been quite a lot of questions and quite a lot of comments either way, but it was 0.71 XG in the second half. So 1.25 overall, as the screen will say, but just 0.71 in the second half. It was just 6 shots in the second half and 2 on target. Again, you're playing the whole thing against 10 men. I wanted more and I expected more. And I think that's because with Arsenal in the position they're in right now, top of the league, by far the best team in the Premier League so far this season, and showing us every week the solutions they can find from the bench, I start to expect more. So I was naturally quite disappointed in Arsenal's second half. But if you zoom back out, like you said, and say, well, here's the situation after a hell of a week, I think you take it.
I think Arteta, Mark, I think Arteta would answer you, what do we want? He would have taken a draw against Bayern and a win here.
Yeah.
Of course. Of course. But I'm not offering him that last week. I'm just offering you 2 wins and a draw. He's not allowed to be picky. You don't choose which lottery you want to win. You just try and win them. And that's a good week for Arsenal. And to Sam's point about maybe expecting a little bit more, I see what you're saying. I would counter that, Janusz, with you're away from home in a bear pit. I mean, this is a coliseum. You've got a guy sent off for Chelsea. Their fans are not happy with the referee. They're trying to put pressure on. There's a heck of a lot of skullduggery and some play acting from both sets of players to try and get other players sent off. So there's a danger that you maybe lose control of the game, chase it that little bit too much, and in the end up going home with nothing, like a bad contestant on Bullseye, for those of you in the UK. For the US, YouTube, it's quite good. So do you see what Sam's saying, but you see my point of view as well? You've just got to be careful and game control from an Arsenal perspective. I thought it was fine. They just decided they didn't want to go too gung-ho in case they got cut out at the other end.
Yeah, I think for us, in a way, when you have a team like Arsenal in the position they're in, very much positioned that we've seen Manchester City at their best, very much, last season where we've seen Liverpool, where they haven't always been great, but found a way. Our problem on our end is that we're always looking for perfection, right? And yeah, it would have been good if Arsenal were controlling the game like they used to, right? But let's not forget where they've been and, the long road, all the question marks we've had about the lack of character, lack of spine, lack of the center backs, no Patrick Vieira in the center of the pitch, no finishers or whatever we used to pick on. It's here. And then, but, there comes a game like this where, just perfection gets away from you. So you can ask questions. We'll continue to do it because this is our nature. We try to, bring those teams down a little bit. Time will show, of course, but I couldn't give you a tangible reason why Arsenal can win that trophy, can win the Premier League, right? I'm not saying they will, but if I start speculating right now, it's just going to be that, because facts are showing that Arsenal can deal with everybody. Today was unfortunate. Today, as I've said, it was a bit of a fight, which, by the way, they've answered, unlike in many games in the past, when I'm talking past, going years back. That's all that is. That's speculation. I think Arteta has found a lot about his players. They did come back. They did look towards the end where they were still pushing, and they didn't get it done. So we'll see.
Yeah, they've got a tough one at Villa coming up next weekend. They played Brentford in midweek, Sam. But when you look back at the games Arsenal have already played, they lost that late Liverpool winner to Dominic Szoboszlai. They drew at home to Manchester City. They've been to Newcastle. They've beaten Spurs. They've got Villa still to come. That's a lot of the tough first round of fixture games already done for. So, as Janusz was saying, take care of the games you should be taking care of. And you would think that gap at the top would only go one way, and that would extend.
Yeah. First of all, references to Bullseye and Patrick Vieira, loving this. We really are stuck 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's better then, though, wasn't it?
I think so.
That's another podcast or another episode.
So I think we know from history, from Premier League history, years of watching the game, that a tried and trusted strategy of winning the Premier League is to be a flat track bully. So if you can build yourself a lead, which Arsenal already have, and then take care of the games as you suggest that they should take care of, you could afford to draw against the other big guns because you'll just outlast because you have the advantage. So as kind of Janusz has pointed, there's absolutely no reason to worry or be concerned off the back of today's performance. Off the back of the week, it's an acceptable situation to be in. It's an acceptable point to take, as long as it's not followed up by a blip at Brentford. That's when you actually start to ask the questions, because Arsenal are significantly better than 90% of the team. So they'll beat, or should beat, almost all of those teams. As long as they continue to do that, it's fine.
Going back 40 years ago, we had electricity meters as well, and you cut out for 3/4 of that answer. I heard a little bit of that. I thought it was really good, but hopefully we can get that back and get that fixed. I don't know what happened there. Normally, it doesn't matter. Anyway, final question for you, Janusz. After this, we know that Gabriel's probably out till the new year. Might be back just before that. Obviously, still awaiting the extent of the injury to Chalobah. When Arsenal did their business in the summer and they signed who they signed, and they made some really good signings, there was very little fanfare upon the arrival of Nkapie on loan and Mosquera from La Liga. And while a lot of other teams might end up with having to promote from the reserves or the under-19s, they've got two really good replacements, haven't they? And that could be the difference between filling in for players that you need to and panicking because you don't have adequate replacements for Arsenal.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at Nkapie and Mosquera today. I mean, I didn't see anything wrong with their play. I mean, probably first time they played ever together, right? I mean, and we know in a game like this, especially in a game like this, that's so hectic away from home, with physicality and press, it's easy to make mistakes. Here are two players that don't know each other. The level of communication is obviously different than that between Gabriel and Chalobah. And let's not forget everybody else, because we're just talking about two center backs. But, you know, it's a whole block, and that also includes the goalkeeper. So that could have gone every which way for the young Mosquera. Nkapie, of course, got some experience. It made a lot of sense. Jakub Kiwior was the Polish international who could have played center back and on the left-hand side. They felt that he wasn't good enough in the end, right? And Nkapie, as we all know from Bayer Leverkusen, can play as a left fullback, can even play as a wing back at times. So, you know, he gives you option. And Mosquera, a breath of fresh air, really, because, I mean, he's been good, he's been strong. And in today's game, if I had to pick something, I would have thought that I'd be going those places right there. Maybe miscommunication, maybe an individual mistakes. I really can't do that. I think those two have played well, and that just adds into what every champion needs, either this year, next year, whenever that may be, is depth of squad, but quality depth, and they've got that.
They have indeed. A breathless encounter at the Bridge. Chelsea were a man down, but a goal up, but Arsenal came back thanks to Saka's delivery and Mikel Merino's header. A point apiece. The spoils were shared in this London derby, so no one was able to get Bully's special prize. Instead, they get sent home with a point apiece. Bye for now.